Hi, this is Curt, and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
And we could caption this segment like many segments. Don't do that. I mean, I'm not sure what this is. This is just a lot of things that if you do, you're going to pay money. So let's start right in Canada, and then we'll jump out to another one. But we start with a pair of sexual harassment settlements. The Canadian one is extremely interesting. First of a kind ever that it happened. It's it is a class action.
It is a class action.
And if I remember correctly, it was probably about 6 or 7 months where the Canadian Fire Service came out and said, we have an issue. We have a toxic issue of hostility against women, et cetera. And here you go. Here you have a situation where it's a settlement, I believe. It's that each person who's a woman who's been in the fire department for the last 20 years is going to receive, depending on the varying level of what they underwent for bullying, harassment, discrimination, et cetera, between $10,000 and $250,000, presumably for their claims or would-be claims. And presumably this increases based on the length you've been in the department. So this is a big deal, but I think it's also a big deal because combined with the government's comments, really harsh comments about its own fire service saying we have a toxic environment for women. This is a, if you don't get the hint here, you're never going to get it. That's got to end. So I don't know if you want to talk about that specifically in Canada, or you want to just jump right into New York.
One thing I would point out is we're not Canadian attorneys, so I don't know how much this translates over to the U.S. in terms of a remedy, because it was a settlement. It wasn't ordered by the court. And so I think their court systems are analogous to ours, and their laws are certainly analogous to ours, but I don't know how class actions work in Canada. So there may be some nuances there that, while certainly relevant, and I think it's the same thing. And I know the fire brigades in the UK are dealing with the same problems. Okay, so here in the US, we're not unique in trying to deal with these problems, but Canada, this is one, and this has been a front page headline for much of the last year in Canada, and I think there's been a lot of attention to it. I think it's unfortunate sometimes that elected officials don't take these problems more seriously and put pressure on fire chiefs and administrators to really fix this problem. But now it looks like there's enough attention on it. And, there's so many different levels here. But this was pretty clearly sexual assaults. Some of the factual allegations about sexual assaults that happened in the station, bullying, pretty outrageous kinds of stuff that was reported and apparently never dealt with. And many fire departments don't have the inside capability to do good investigations. They don't have a very good disciplinary structure. And without that, the fire chief is like, well, what do I do? You're accusing one of my best firefighters of doing something wrong. And, maybe you're not an A-team player. And so now the organization is kind of lining up behind the bully. And the chief doesn't really have the skills or the tools to really say, I don't care who you are, this is not going to be tolerated in this organization. And so again, I think there's a lot of different levels, but the settlement seems pretty, it's got the elected officials' attention, let's put it that way. And when you have their attention, then things can happen. The money's going to flow, station modifications, a lot of other things that often get neglected when we go to a more diverse workforce. And all of a sudden, well, you know what, I guess we're going to have to upgrade the stations. I guess we're going to have to do a lot. We're going to have to do officer training in this particular area. where before we couldn't afford any of those things. So,
and look, if you're a fire chief, you know, because there's the opposite side, right? You painted the side of the fire chief who wants to do something. I'm a believer that if it's toxic in the department, it's toxic because of the fire chief, whether because of their direct involvement or their absentee involvement. And the first thing any fire chief can do, if they want help, is stand up and say, this shit ends now. And if you are a fire chief who is not doing that, or you want to allow the discrimination or the harassment or the bullying because you think, oh, it's making our male firefighters safe and our community safer by getting these weak women out, right? If that's your mentality, and I've heard people say that, your time in the fire service has expired, your way of thinking is out, and you need to retire because you are antiquated. And this is where the world is. The world is where we all can, not everybody's equipped to do it, but everybody should be given the chance, the proper chance, without harassment, bullying, harmful pranks, jokes, whatever. They should be allowed to do it. If they can meet the standard, a fair standard, then they can do it. Leave them alone. But, you know, if you're one of these people who believe women or black or gay or whatever shouldn't be in the fire service, you're a dinosaur now. Get out.
Absolutely. I don't mean to throw cover for folks like that, but I'll tell you, I've had good chiefs. I mean, folks that are right-minded and everything. They're hiring a diverse workforce, and they go to the city administration and say, okay, I've got 8 stations. I'm going to need about $800,000 to upgrade the bathroom and shower facilities. And the elected officials say, no, sorry. And then they go to the city officials and say, look, we've got a diverse workforce. We've got to do more than just a check the box training for sexual harassment. Right. And they're told, no, we want to send our officers. No, you can't have the money. But these same elected officials are the ones that are saying you've got to hire these people. You've got to hire a more diverse workforce, and they're not providing. So I guess my point with this is that the elected officials finally realize, hopefully, that it's going to cost the taxpayers money, and that the money that you invest up front in station modifications and accommodations and training, and I don't mean tactics training, I don't mean blue card or red card training. I'm talking about HR training for our officers so that they know how to deal with these problems. We're going to be so much better off, and the department is going to be so much better off. So I agree with you. The dinosaurs, you know, their time is long since expired, but there are some good chiefs out there that are struggling with these problems, and the resources that they need to deal with it are not coming forward. The ideas, the elected officials are coming forward with these wonderful ideas, but then they're shortchanging the departments on the other end.
Yeah, and then don't doubt it. Speaking as, you know, our past fire chief selves, you know darn well what's going to happen. The same elected official who refused to support you to resolve the issue, right, then turns around and blames you, fires you, criticizes you when you haven't done it. And speaking to our younger chiefs and younger leadership, this will haunt you forever. Yeah. Right. Once you are pegged as somebody who tolerates harassment, discrimination, bullying, hazing, whatever, you're done in the fire service. It is going to be on the internet. You're going to end up on our show, right? And we're going to be talking about you, and like, well, you know, who knows? And the back end of the story that we'll never see is that fire chief went to their elected officials and said, we need to do something about it. Right. And it's not just sexual harassment, by the way, and sexual diversity, it's gender identification.
Absolutely.
We need changing our bathrooms, right? We have these states like New York, which has all these great ideas about protecting the rights of people, but we don't want to invest the money to do it. And to your point, so hopefully this will send a shockwave through Canada.